Danish pastry is difficult to bake. I have to say it. So if you want to watch this video, you're sort of in the elite of the home bakers. But it can be done. I've spent the last month researching how to bake the perfect croissant. Because the croissant, unlike other kind of Danish bread, doesn't have cream or chocolate or marmalade or anything like that to hide your mistakes. It has to be very well done to perceive to be very good. And this is what I found out.
Well, even though it's difficult, it's certainly not impossible, and you can get a far better flavor and a far better texture when you make the croissants yourself. Very simple ingredients list, but it does help if you have a mixer, because it's a pretty wet dough, and that can be difficult to do by hand. Milk, sugar, salt, yeast, an egg, flour, butter, soft butter, and I used about 2/3 of the flour, so the butter will have a chance to mix up when the dough is wet. And then I add the last of the flour. And the machine shouldn't be running for more than 3 to 5 minutes. If it's wet and lumpy, it's right. We don't really want to knead the dough. We just want to mix all the ingredients together. So now we have to let it rise for about an hour. And while it is rising, we can beat the butter. This is what I call the folding butter. It's just regular butter, but we'll handle it so it becomes soft and pliable. Beat it. And if it's really hot, you can press down. And make sure there's plenty of flour so it doesn't stick. You can press down like this. That's a little faster than beating for a very long time. But you still have to beat. It just helps in the beginning of the process. And when it's thin, we fold it. Beat it from the other side. Fold it again. Beat it. Not too much flour, otherwise your kitchen will be snow-filled for a week. But just enough so it doesn't stick. And it's enough when you can press it down like this and it keeps the shape, and you can do it without problems, but it shouldn't be soft so it runs between your fingers. And now the dough has risen. Flour on the table. Dough on the flour. And we got to shape it into a ball. As it is a pretty wet dough, it can be difficult to do it without it sticking to your fingers, so you have to work fast. Fold it into itself from the bottom. Now we have to let it rest. For an hour. I let it rest in the refrigerator because it has to be cold, just like the butter. So this is a cold dough now that I make these 4 folds. A slight bump in the middle where I can put the butter. I fold it like this in a little package where the butter is in the middle. Make sure it doesn't stick. The dough is still pretty wet. and I press it flat. I could use the rolling pin, but in this stage it's easier to just use your hands. You can also feel where the butter ends up. Make sure there's no butter sticking out. And then I roll it. It has to be one width and 3 width long. So 1 by 3, a square, not a square, rectangle. That is 1 by 3, because then when we fold it over in 3, it'll be 1 by 1. And if it sticks, make sure to turn it over and put on some flour. See, in this end there's a little butter sticking through. I close that with the flour. Then I fold it, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3. This is called a letter fold. And to have a nice finish, square, you can cut off this end. It's not necessary, but it's not a problem either. Put it into the middle. And then put the last fold over. Then you have a prettier square, and that makes it easier to work with. It's not a cosmetic problem. I can feel that the dough is still soft, so I can roll it once more, fold it once more. If you have a feeling that it's hard, you have to put it into the fridge. Again, 1 by 3, and I don't do any cutting this time. Just fold it. Try to make it as square as possible. I fold this in under itself in the end, so it's pretty square. Now it has to rest. It's difficult to work with. I cannot make another fold right now. Put on some flour so it doesn't stick. And I press down with 2 fingers to remember that I have made 2 folds. That I have folded it twice. Otherwise I tend to forget, especially if I make more than 1 per portion. Then I have taken it out of the fridge and I'm ready to fold it the last time. And if there's any air bubbles, I puncture them. We don't want too much flour, only enough to make it not stick to the table. So brush it off if it's there. If you have a pencil, you can do it with that. No, not a pencil, a brush. Sorry, will be difficult with a pencil. Now it needs to rest one last time before we roll it out, but the folding is done now. I have 3 folds with 3 layers. That's 27 layers of butter inside there. It's done resting, and now I should be able to roll it out to a very large thin plate, a sheet almost. And always enough flour, but not too much. That's one of the things you have to try a few times to know how to do. And I use a straight French rolling pin like this, not one of those with the handle, because it's very important that you don't pull or push into the dough. You have to roll. I put the rolling pin on top of the dough, and then I push down and roll with my hands. So I don't pull or push the dough, because it'll shear. That will simply destroy your croissants. They'll be like buns and they'll be fine, but it'll not be croissants. So the rolling technique is very important, and it's a very good idea to use one of those straight pins, the French rolling pins. And I show it. I know this takes a long time, but I really want to show the entire process as unchanged, unedited as possible, because this is the difficult part for most people. It has to be about 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 centimeter thick. that is 40 by 60 centimeters. Or 16 by 24 inches, as some people would say. My roller pin is exactly 40 centimeters wide, so I use that as a measurement. If you don't have something similar, you must use a measuring device of some kind, tape band or any other device that'll work. Now it's 40 by 40. Need to be a little longer. This table is 60 by 60 centimeters. So I use this as a measurement. If it feels, now it's 60 centimeters long and 40 centimeters wide. And I'm ready to cut out and shape the croissants. Cut off the edges. That makes it a lot easier to make nice croissants. You don't absolutely have to, but your results will be a lot better. So it's a nice straight rectangle. Cut it in the middle, the long, lengthwise. Cut it in the middle again. So we're halfway there. Well, almost. Cut it into 8 rectangles. And then I cut this like this. This is for the pain au chocolat. And the croissants, they will have to make into triangles. So we can roll them up into the famous croissant shape. Like this. Grab the wide end and roll it away from you. And make sure it rests on the tip. And be careful not to mangle it has to have 3 layers like this at least. The thinner you make it, the more layers you can make. But I think 3 layers is appropriate. Again, just gently fold it, as careful as possible. You can have it straight, you can have half moon, or you can have it round. It doesn't make any difference. That's just fashion. You can cut the a small snip, and you get a bit wider croissant. It's a bit longer. For the pain au chocolat, you can take your chocolate, cut it into 1/4 inch stripes. If you got the right chocolate, it just fits, otherwise you need to cut a bit more. Then you roll over the first chocolate, and then over the second chocolate. You start by putting the first chocolate in the middle, and the second chocolate in the middle between that and the edge. Now it needs to rise, proof. I take a wet hand, put it on a baking pan so it doesn't drip. See, no dripping. I put that on top, and now it needs to rise for an hour or 2. Then I brush it with egg wash after it has risen. And especially the pain au chocolat, they have a tendency to fall over when they rise. So I just straighten them up and flatten them a little. It should be baked, and then it looks like this. So it's not that hard. So give it a go and enjoy. And you can find the list of ingredients and the recipe on kvalifood.